started because we've got a lot to cover today, but I know people are still getting settled in, so we'll continue. There's some empty seats up here. And then exit out. Greetings to all who are here, who braved the cold. Greetings to all those who ventured out technologically and joined us. We have quite a few online meeting participants.
That would make sense.
We're going to talk pretty much just about enterprise today. We don't often dedicate a users group meeting to just one topic, but this is by far the biggest elephant in the room as far as technology services goes. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. First of all, we should start off with the ever-popular lunch count. You should probably decide where we're going to go first before people commit themselves. Any nominations? We have an Applebee's nearby, there's Dos Amigos, there's Pie, all of which we've gone to in the past with some success. Toodles. I got one. Oh, Applebee's. Okay, I'm seeing some heads nod. All right, this is a different room arrangement than we typically use for this meeting, so we'll just kind of start on this side and go through around, and we'll get through everybody sooner or later. So I'll say 1.
2. Where'd it go?
4. 5.
I'm 6. 7.
7.
9.
9.
10.
11. Too bad. Make that. Okay. We just say we make it 15. Applebee's, 15. Thank you very much, Angie. All right. If you are a social media type, we have a hashtag set up for this, so please feel free to use #SELCO Enterprise, and we'll probably adopt that for a lot of future posts on this topic as well. The heart of this meeting is going to be the demonstration, and I think that's probably what most people are here for. But we've got to have a little background first, don't we? Well, I think part of the reason for that is we've been talking about this for a very long time, and that may be part of it. So some of this may seem a little old hat. Just the other day, though, someone asked me, why are we changing discovery layers for the calendar? That's a good question. For one thing, it's been 4 years since we launched Aqua Browser, believe it or not. It doesn't seem like 4 years, but it has been. And in those 4 years, there's been some development in discovery layer development. When we went to Aqua Browser, there weren't that many choices that would work with Horizon. Dynex was developing enterprise, but it was still in its infancy, and I don't think it was ready for prime time. So that one was off the table. And there were a couple of others, but Aqua Browser was very much the pioneer. They were the first large-scale discovery layer developed to be cross-platform to work with all kinds of ILSs, and it definitely had the majority of the market share. So it wasn't too hard to decide to go with Aqua Browser. But now, 4 years later, geez, there's all kinds of them. Seems like every ILS company is developing a discovery layer, and everyone's making them cross-platform because everyone's starting to figure out that's a good way they can get each other's customers. It's also a good way for companies that are not well established in the ILS market to get a foothold. One thing that we're looking for is better integration with Horizon. 4 years ago when we went with Aqua Browser, we were a little more open to solutions that would work with Horizon after some effort. There were a lot of solutions out there that could be made to work with Horizon, but they took a lot of work on our part to set up and maintain. 4 years later, We're deeper into this alleged recovery of the economy. Money is tighter than it's ever been before. Everyone is stretched. You are stretched at your libraries, and I don't think I'm telling any secrets when I say we're stretched at SELCO. So solutions that integrate with Horizon without all the overhead and maintenance are very attractive to us. So that's something we were looking for as we looked for a new discovery layer. And all of this simply points to the need to move forward. E-books were not nearly the significant factor 4 years ago as they are now for library services. So e-book integration was a big deal for us. A lot of things have changed, and it seemed like it was time for us to move on. So we conducted a search. A team consisting of Cheryl Hill, Tyler Urban, and myself did a survey of the marketplace. We evaluated 4 discovery layers, which were selected based on their market share with Horizon libraries. Those findings were presented to the ILS Operations Committee, as well as numerous other groups for vetting, and ultimately Enterprise won. Why did it win? Integration with Horizon was one of the biggest factors. Seeing that it's made by Dynix, one would certainly hope that it would integrate well with Horizon, and it does. A lot of things that had to be bolted on separately to Aqua Browser, such as My Accounts, are built right into the Enterprise catalog. Integration with ebooks was a big one. We use Overdrive for our public libraries. I shouldn't say our public libraries. You're your own entity. We don't own you. For the public libraries that we work with, we use Overdrive. We are working on finding a solution for school media centers. Overdrive has been developing an API which will allow other companies' products to interface directly with the Overdrive software. But Dynix was the first partner they worked with on that. So the integration with Enterprise is much further along than it is with any of the other discovery layers we looked at. Support is a factor. The ability to simply go to Dynix, with whom we already have a relationship, we already have support contracts, we already know the people. They know our system. They know who we are because we've been with them since 2003. That was a major factor in streamlining operations. And we were interested in the Rooms product. Rooms is kind of an add-on. You're going to hear more about it as Tyler and Cheryl do their presentation. But that was something we didn't see in any of the other discovery layers. And we found that pretty intriguing. So the timeline. We're starting with today because the timeline previous to this is just too depressing to talk about. But I will say, most of you probably know, our original timeline was to go live in August of 2013. That didn't happen because a small but relatively crucial feature that we had been promised would be ready in August was not ready in August. It did not become ready and actually implemented until December. So now we can go live with our item-specific holds, which we could not have done previously. And we decided that was worth holding the process up for. The silver lining to that cloud has been that the ebook integration is much further along now than it was in August, although there are still a few hurdles that Dynix needs to clear on that, and you're going to hear more about that a little later. So today we are having the rollout meetings, one now, one this afternoon, in an effort to get as many people here as possible. For the next 2 months, we're going to conduct beta testing and gather feedback from all of you as well as some patrons. And then on Tuesday, April 1st, which hopefully will not be apropos for April Fool's Day, we will launch the product and take Aqua Browser down. There has been some discussion about leaving Aqua Browser running for a little while, partly to provide a little cushion, but also to assist some libraries and school media centers that have got pathfinders out there showing how to use the catalog. In the end, I have to tell you, that was not feasible. Partly because we had to extend our support with Aqua Browser just to accommodate our newly lengthened timeline. And so the support for that ends at the end of March. And for SELCO staff, we felt that it was more important that we be able to dedicate all of our energies to maintaining and improving the enterprise catalog. So I hope that's not going to be too big a problem. If the catalog changes a lot during the testing period, then we will consider freezing development a couple of weeks before the launch to make sure that everyone has time to update their documents. But we'll make that call when we get a little bit closer. So April 1st is the big day. Put it on your calendars. And with that, we're going to go to what everyone is much more interested in, the timeline, and that is a demonstration of the product.
Okay. First, I just had a wonderful thought of a comic that I just saw yesterday. I'm going to bring up. Here's what I'm hoping won't happen. I'm spending a lot of time on this task. I should write a program automating it. Theory on how it works, how it actually works. Okay. But, like I said, I'm really hoping that doesn't happen in reality. So, enterprise. Start off, enterprise, each of you is going to have your own profile, as you do in Aqua Browser. That way you can go through and limit it to the items that are only available in your library. If you have certain facets, it will still show other libraries, but it will only be bib records that are marked with items at your library. So, one second. Let me bring up my detailed agenda for this to make sure I'm covering things in the right order. And the book river. Okay, so, as I was saying, each of you has your own profile. Up here is the SELCO logo. It's going to be in all of your profiles, and then your banner. For the most part, these have been copied over from Aqua Browser. A few of you have changed since our timeline got delayed, and I will go through and update those. But for the most part, all of you just have the same image as you do on your Aqua Browser profile. It fits the same dimensions, so there's no need to worry about that. If you want to change it, it's a relatively simple process. As long as you follow the same dimensions as the image, we can go through and set that up when we work on customizing each of your profiles. And there will come a point when I will be talking to all of your libraries to make sure that we have everything set up on your profile the way that you want it set up. For example, the next thing down here is what used to be tabs. We have set up as links down here underneath the banner. I'll go through and check with all of you that you have the proper tabs that you want, and they're still going to the correct locations, things like that. For example, these are the ones that are in the SELCO one right now. So we have the suggested title form, search min link, the Michael's Newspaper Hub, contact us, and a link to the research page on the SELCO website, which I'm debating the usefulness for, considering I was able to do this alongside the profile. As you see along the right side of the profile, I have used this little space over here to go ahead and add in links to each of the databases that SELCO has subscriptions to. So it's fast and easy access there. Hopefully we'll get a little more use out of them that way.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, so looking at the profile, this is set up into a 3-column view. That's pretty much the default for this. There are some alternate settings like this. Cheryl will probably show you one that has a 2-column view later on, but for the most part we've been sticking with the 3-column one. So on the left side here, you'll see the area that has the rooms. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And we have another little section right here where we can customize per profile. For ours, I have it set up to Elm and Midlink. And then over on the right side, again, we have another customizable spot. And skip this for a minute. But down here, underneath the book, older spot is customizable. You'll see down here, I've gone ahead and created a blink that will allow access to each of your individual library profiles. They have all been set up, although, like I said, they haven't been confirmed for the customization. And if you need to go to your library's profile, I'd recommend using this jump down here to get there. That was actually quite fun figuring out how to do that. Okay, the other thing that we have on the profile enabled on the SELCO one is the book river. This is a fun little gadget that Seriously Dynamics has included for us to easily put into the profiles. Has its own space dedicated. If you don't use it, this content down here moves up to the top. But it just goes through and cycles through various lists that have been pre-generated by publishers and all that. For example, you see this one is the New York Times bestsellers list combined print and ebook fiction. It is cycling through them, and you can always hit the Find in My Library for the title, and we'll do a title author search to get to any records that we have in our collection. I will say that originally it was an ISBN search, but the way that we do our cataloging around here, title author works far better. There are also various little drop-downs here to choose from. And as of the last release, actually, we have about a dozen more to choose from that we could add to this drop-down list. But so far, we're just sticking with New York Times bestsellers for fiction and nonfiction and a couple of USA Today ones. But there are a lot of them available now, like the business, New York Times bestsellers business, New York Times bestsellers young adults. Those are all available up there as well. And the list you show is customizable per library. Okay, and well, I'm sure most of you know how these things work. You can cycle through and get to one really quick if you see something down there from the little thumbnail to get to it. And here's the rest of this one changes. I'm not entirely sure if my search will work.
Tyler, did you say the lists are customizable?
Which list you use is customizable. The lists themselves, Horizon customers can customize them.
So we can like tell that drop-down menu how many we have on that drop-down menu?
Mm-hmm. And which one?
Tyler, can you check to make sure the people online can hear the question?
You have a question?
That's the question.
Oh, sorry. Kathy wants to confirm that it was customizable for which drop-down menus are two options in the drop-down menu for the Book River. Okay. Now, since this one is the SELCO profile, it looks a little bit different than the default for the libraries. I'm going to go ahead and show you some Brodas right now, because we like to pick on them. Sorry, Dave. And you'll see that as opposed to the SELCO profile, which has these two drop-downs here, the Zumbrota profile actually has three drop-downs. Cheryl will talk a little bit more about those later on, but you can see, for example, in this first one, it has Zumbrota Public Library. That will limit it to just they have records that have Zumbrota Public Library items attached to them, as opposed to the SELCO one, which doesn't have one, which means that it is not limited to anything. It is searching the entire database. Okay. Cheryl, do you want to go ahead and go into search and targets?
Yeah. Okay. So this is the fun stuff. So first I have to say, most of you know I'm from Illinois. So now I feel like I'm a real Minnesotan because I can tell the difference between 20 above and 0. You always have to start with a joke, right? Okay. Okay, so this is exciting for me because we have a lot more control than we did under Apple Browser of how searching works and how it works with our data. So the first thing I think I'm going to show you here is kind of right where Tyler left off. If you go to another profile, and you'll notice that your profile is just your location code in Horizon, right? VUM, etc. You have these three search fields. I'll try not to look over there. Try to look over here. So this is your search target, right? Your search target or your search limit is what it calls it. And the idea is that this is a beginning search that limits everything down to whatever search you choose to put in there. And I've given you a couple examples here under Zumbrota, mainly because, you know, I like to pick on James, and this is my home library. So you'll notice right now I'm switching to Zumbrota DVDs, and what it's going to do is it's going to just search the catalog for Zumbrota's DVDs, doing it by format, looking at the 007 for you catalogers. And you'll see it found all of Zumbrota's 5,264 DVDs that then you can limit further down. Only looking for bibs with a Zum item attached to it. So then if you go to the other search target and do all DVDs, you can hit search, and you'll notice I'm not limiting the search by anything in the search bar. I'm just doing a blank search. So now it's going to pull all SELCO DVDs with the format DVD. So this is a great way to sort of think of replacing those big lists that you might have on your websites, or if you're printing out lists, like I remember I used to do sometimes. So now we've got all 26,534 of our DVDs. So I could do this, we can do this for your individual locations using different formats. There are some limits depending on how accurately things are cataloged. But for the most part, it's the big formats will be covered under this. So you'll, yeah, Michelle.
Now, the DVDs are pulled out from the MARC record?
Yeah. Everything is being pulled from the MARC record that you're seeing here. The ebooks are an exception to that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. I don't know online if you heard the question, but Michelle asked if the data was being pulled from the MARC record, and yes, all this data is being pulled from MARC. So I'll talk about that in a second when I get to facets. One of the other things I wanted to show you is if you hit search here, again, I've switched it to all libraries. I'm still under one of your library's profiles, and it's giving me all 638,000 of our bids. So it's an easy way to get your entire catalog. And if I hit search here, now I'll just get some Broda's bids. So think of that blank search as kind of a blank search, and you will get results from it. All right, so then here you have your search fields. So these are, we can control these, and these are, again, based off of MARC tags, right? So we told the series field, we want you to look at the 490. We want you to look at the 830. We want you to look at the 800. So, and the ISBN is the 020, etc. So that's how these work. By default, it's a general keyword search. So I'm going to play around with James today. So you can see it's just a general keyword search. It has, I'm really not trying to tell you.
There's a better way to tell me in this meeting, Cheryl.
For those of you who don't know, James is my husband. Playing around with him. So, yeah. So it does have a did-you-mean. It will correct your spelling. If you're like me and you can't spell anything, it's really helpful. So another cool feature I wanted to show was, is it under Rochester Schools? Profile, the district?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any of the school profiles.
Any of the school profiles. Is we can customize these search targets. So let's see, if we go to Rochester Public Schools, any of them, say you wanted to do a search across your school district, or if you wanted to do a search across your county, or, I don't know, your city, maybe you have a school and a public library in your city, and you wanted to be able to search geographically, you can do that too. You'll notice that Tyler set up here, you can search Century High School, you can search the Rochester School District, so, and get all across all those schools. I think we set one up for Owatonna so that you can search Owatonna, you can search Blooming Prairie, or you can search both. So we just set that one up by default, right? So you did that, yeah. So, and then it gives you the 70,000 bids that are across the 7 buildings, I think it is, of the Rochester School. So it's kind of a nice little feature. No, I had one as an example that would search all 5 of the Goodhue libraries in Goodhue County, but it looks like I took it off. So it's really great. It's very flexible. We have a bunch of control over it, and we can do some customizing with it.
Cheryl, can I interrupt for a second? When you talk about customizing, what is going to be the process through which we're saying we want that county or we want...
I'll let Donovan answer that.
As we go through this process, we'll be contacting directors and automation contacts about the specific features that can be customized. We don't have a timetable for that yet, but we'll be doing it kind of as we go through. We have a list of the things that we'll need to talk to you about. Things like confirming, is the graphic banner still correct? What rooms are you interested in? We'll be talking about rooms in a little while. What search targets do you want to have set up? And does Owatonna still want the Blooming Prairie or anything? So we'll be sending out a lot of contacts to you. Some of that we'll probably do via email. Some of it we may do via web forms.
Did I answer your question? So for those of you online, James Hill asked How are you going to be able to tell us what you want customized? And Donovan said there will be a lot of communications that are going to occur, email and online forum type communications. Contacts and directors, he said. Don't know if they could hear that. All that on the side. Okay, so that's your basic search interface. You're noticing, I hope, that it's a lot more customizable than Aqua Browser, and it's a lot, I think it looks nicer. So I'm going to talk about facets. I'm going to go hit the home button here, and it's going to bring me back to the home of the profile. And let's see, I think I want to go back to, yeah, I'm going to go back to the default. And I'm just going to do a search here, a blank search to pull up all 638,000 of our bids real quickly. I want to talk about facets for a minute. This is where Donovan talked about the integration with Horizon. This is where we're starting to see some of that integration is with the searching and with this display. We have this very long, complicated process to get our data out of Horizon and into Aqua Browser. Every night we were exporting copies of every single bid. So all 650,000 bids were being exported every night and being moved to a server, and then Aqua Browser was coming in and running scripts. There's a lot of steps, so there were a lot of steps where things could go wrong, and then we'd have to do a whole bunch of stuff to try to fix it. And it never really was very seamless. I mean, it got to pretty seamless, I think, and we were doing a lot of checks to make sure the process behind the scenes was going correctly. But every time you account for one problem and one step of the whole process failing, something else would fail. So it was kind of a fitting a square peg into a round hole type situation. That is not how enterprise works. How enterprise works is they are doing a full harvest of our database, and we have it set right now to weekly. So Saturday at like 6 in the morning or something like that, it's probably like 2 in the morning, we have it set to do a full harvest where it's pulling all of our data. Then every hour, on the hour, it's doing what's called the delta. So this is the one we didn't have in Aqua Browser, where it's looking for the changes that happened since the last delta, and it's updating things. And then there is the web services call to our items for our item statuses, right? We have that one at Aqua Browser too. So we now have 3 ways of communication with Horizon, whereas in Aqua Browser we were really limited to just a full harvest and then item status updates. That's for the most part what we got. So because we're getting our changes right as they're happening, or within the hour, I should say, and we're not running these elaborate scripts to sort of rework our data, we are going to start seeing our data in all of its glory, for better or for worse. So I wanted to talk about this because if you see, as I'm going through demonstrating how facets work in here in a minute, and I'm doing searches for you, and as you go back to your libraries and you are doing searches and testing and playing and learning, if you see problems that are appearing here, it is not the software. It is probably our data. So now, it doesn't mean our data is wrong all the time. Sometimes, a lot of the time. But it could be the way that MARC works, right? MARC data is what we're talking about here. That's the problem we're sort of running into with formats. Not really a problem, but you may have noticed the email we sent out. Becky sent out an email about the large prints. We have no control over the fact that our large prints now need to have a fixed field, whereas before they didn't. And that's just because of how MARC data works. It's the only consistent place that you can tell a computer program to go here and look for format. So it's kind of kludgy. It feels that way to us, but it makes sense if you think about where the data is in the MARC record. So as you're going through, as you're playing with things, if you see problems, let us know. It's probably, hopefully, something we can fix. Now, I'm not saying the software is perfect and there won't be things that the software can't do that you want it to do, but I think it's fair to say that the majority of the issues we're going to see have more to do with our data than with the software itself. So we need to fix the problems we have or adjust accordingly. That makes sense to everybody? So do good cataloging, in other words. So, okay, that's my little spiel on the importance of cataloging. So, let's see. Yeah, so I did say your errors might be much more apparent. So, and you will start to see that in these facets. So I'll start talking about the facets here, and you're probably already noticing some oddities, like how do we have things with a publication date of year 1, since, you know, there was nothing really published in year 1. And if you were to click on this, like I just did, it opens up a new search with that limit of the publication date. And these happen to be brief on order records, I think, that are showing up here. So you're going to start seeing things like that, and we're going to have to address them over the next 2 months and how we're going to deal with those and how we're going to make them display. But there's nothing wrong with how the publication facet is working. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But there's something lacking or there's something weird about the 260 subfield C or the 264 subfield C in that record. So, all right, let me go back. So, and you'll notice you can just hit the X here and it gets rid of that search. So, anyone want a book on the Minnesota Department of Corrections? So you can see right now what we have is, I think, how many facets? Do you remember? Did you put all 11? The document. I don't remember how many. Okay, we could count, I suppose. The documentation says that a profile is limited to 10 facets, but Tyler actually put like 11 or 12 in one yesterday. 14? Okay, so maybe the documentation's wrong. So what we're talking about doing is there's going to be 3 facets that are required for every profile, just for consistency's sake, so that all your profiles look the same. But then you are going to get to choose the rest of the facets that you want on your profile. And just like Aqua Browser, if there is no data that fits into your facet when you do a search, there will be no facet that shows up. So if you do a search for subject dogs, and we didn't have any books with the subject heading of dogs, which obviously we do have books with the subject heading of dogs, that facet would not show up. You know what I'm saying? The subject facet would not show up. So on the side. Let's see. Another thing I want to point out as we're talking about Mark here is that we do have some control over fixing things in batches, so that when you're seeing these errors, there are things I can do, things we can do in batches, like our large print books. You looked at this 2 weeks ago. We had 3 large print books. So we exported the data, I inserted in some fixed fields, and we loaded it back in, so now you can see we have thousands of large print books, and then the email went out. So keep that in mind as you're seeing this. There are things we can do in large batches to address things and make things a little more customizable. Like we will be fixing the undetermined language, because really 13,000 undetermined, that's helpful. You can see we have facets for the 3 major reading levels, Lexile, reading counts, and then there is one for AR. There it is, down towards the bottom. So one of the interesting things about the facets in Enterprise is that you can include and exclude. Let's say I wanted to only look at DVDs that were films for the hearing impaired, or I didn't want audiobooks because I really want a book to read. So you can include things or you can exclude it. And in Aqua Browser, there was kind of a kludgy way of doing this with Boolean operators, but it didn't work very well. So now you get 675,000 things that are not audiobooks or do not have the subject of audiobook in them. But certainly. The default facet has the library as a choice, but for your profiles, we did not put that on there. Instead, we're thinking that you would likely want to use those search targets, those drop-downs instead. Again, you'll be able to choose 7 or more facets, so you can choose that one if you want that on your profile. I think the 3 facets we said you have to have are format. I can't remember now.
Should be the next 3.
Okay. Format, author, and pub date? Okay. All right. So format, all of you will have on your profiles defaulted format, author, pub date. We also do have a list of the facets we currently have and the facets we're working on. Sometimes they take a little trial and error just to get the coding correctly so it picks up the right indicator and the right subfield of the mark tag and does the proper things with it. So we have one for the 3 reading levels. There is no way to search by range. I know people have asked me that. A couple of you have sent me emails when we got the reading level facet working in Aqua Browser. There is no way to search by range as of yet. Maybe sometime after April we can play with that. I don't know if it's even possible. But what you can do is you can select several of these, right? If you know you want in between 4.1 and 4 for your AR level, you can select several of these and hit the include button. And that will limit your search by whatever you've selected.